Right, this is something, sorry like this, he's got to turn you down now. This is something that's been brewing in my mind for several months now. And I'm going to share it with you. Now I know that the majority of my viewers probably will be horrified at what I'm about to say. And I don't want to alienate any of you. Milk floaters, couldn't give a fuck if I alienate you, I'm not bothered. But my loyal subscribers and viewers that constantly tell me, great vid, Toad, thanks very much. Please don't be offended by what I'm about to say, but give it some thought. All right, that's all I ask. Give it some thought, because I'm going to make a statement now that you may not agree with, probably won't agree with, and definitely won't agree with, in that order. And that statement is as follows. What if Nigel Farage and the Reform Party is not the answer? And I know, based on everything that I've said over the past couple of years on YouTube, you would think, and you'd be quite right to think, that I would assume that reform was the way forward because the current parties don't work in any shape or form. That much we can all agree on. But here's my issue, and as you can tell, I study these things, I think about these things, I cogitate on them, and sometimes I just go bang and blurt it out, and then sometimes I go, I'm going to wait and see what happens there for a while. Well, I've been waiting, I've been seeing, and I've got to say, alarm bells are ringing. And here's why. Right, we all know his stance on immigration. He's doubled down on that several times. Every time they say, oh, do you want these people living in tents? No, I want them deported. No, we need to stop it right now. We need to do this, we need to do that. That bit, got no issues with whatsoever. Whether he follows through with it when he gets in power is a different matter, but nevertheless, he stuck to his guns on that. My issue is with the other bits all around it, which are now beginning to soften and become a little bit fluffy and a little bit murky and a little bit worrying. The first one, how can I word this? Yeah, you know there's that religion that begins with I and ends in M and it's got sla in the middle of it. That one. There's been a tremendous, I mean obviously he's got one that is in his cabinet type thing, or in his higher echelons of his group. The softening towards them and the stance towards them and their community leaders, despite his stance on deportation, seems to be at odds with each other. And that I find a bit worrying, that he's already leaked a few little lines. It says, oh, you know, no, we got to accommodate them, and we got to do this, and we got to do that, and we got to do the other, and you know, oh yeah, and it's all gone a little bit woolly in that world, and that worries me, because I think if he can soften on that, what else is he going to soften on? And then this week he said, you know those blokes that say they aren't blokes but they are blokes? I've got to be so careful so I don't fall into the Digital Safety Act here, all right? I'm so careful, and I can't use the words because those words are triggers, and when it goes through the filtering system and the fact checkers and that lot, these will flag up every time. So when I say blokes that say they're not blokes and say they're birds but they're not, they're blokes wearing dresses, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And this week he said, well, maybe they should be in women's prisons. No, Nigel. No. Even contemplating that goes against everything that you've said for the past 10 years. And that, along with the other bit, with the sla and the I and the M at the beginning and the end, those two things combined, I'm now worried, is he just, I think this is where I'm going to with this, is he just going to become a rebranded Tory? And then what we end up with, the idea is that we get Reform and your party, Corbyn's lot, which quite frankly, some of the stuff Corbyn says I do agree with. I don't agree with his beard and his anorak wearing, but you know, you can't have everything, can you? Some of the stuff I do agree with. I don't agree with his socialist views, but some of the stuff is all right, and he actually makes valid points. The point here is that if we had Reform at the next election, we get Reform and we get your party, and they completely shatter the vote for Labour and the Conservatives. I think the Conservatives are finished, and I think Labour, by the time the next election comes on, if they keep going this way, they're finished as well. So you end up with those two parties. Everyone goes, we need change, and you'll probably end up with a split vote between those two parties. And the issue is, we know that Corbyn won't become Labour light. He's going to go Labour hard. Quite the opposite. Whereas, will Nigel just be the Tory party with slightly tougher views on immigration? That's my concern. And all the shit that we've put up with all the equality and all the other crap that comes along with it, and all the stuff that he said is absolutely bonkers for years and years and years, is he going to have to take one for the team and completely get rid of that in order that he doesn't end up having a sniper following him around everywhere because he can't be trusted with the country? And that is my concern. So I'd be interested to know if anyone else has had similar thoughts, because it genuinely concerns me that I've always said that, yeah, it doesn't matter who's in government because the world's run by the WEF anyway, and Starmer's just a puppet, definitely. And what's his name? Not Khan, Sunak. He was just a puppet. They were basically Sooty and Sue. And before that, Johnson, Cameron, all just puppets. Right back to Blair, he was a puppet as well. And they're all signed up to the Davos agreements, and they're only interested in that, and they'll do whatever their paymasters tell them. That's their job. That's what they're there for. And I always like to think that Farage was different to them, and now I'm not so sure. And that's the long and the short of it. And another reason why I'm not so sure is I thought Trump would do the same thing. And this time, now Trump's got into power, it turns out he's completely bought and paid for. Not necessarily by the WEF as such, but he's bought and paid for by the big boys. And I thought, when you're a billionaire, you have the ability to stand up to the big boys, but he doesn't. And apart from being tough on immigration, he's pretty much backed down on the rest. And before we get into the Israel debate, I ain't getting into the Israel debate, but he's clearly bought and paid for. He's clearly bought and paid for. By who? Make your own minds up. And I know that every politician is bought and paid for to a certain extent. But I genuinely thought we had a chance for a breath of fresh air. And now I don't think that's the case. I really don't think that's the case. And I want to be proved wrong. So what I want in the comments, and I'll do a follow-up to this based on what you lot say, because we've got a good cross-section of society, nice age range, especially you pensioners. Hello to the pensioners. So I think we can get a nice reflection on, let's face it, if you're on this channel and you're not a milk floater who's watching this just to have a go at me, it means you must agree with most of what I'm saying. That's why you're here, because I keep getting toned for Prime Minister things. So I know that's the case. But the point is, do you think I've got a point, or do you think I'm just misreading the situation? And that's what I want to know. And I want to turn this into a bit of an open forum. So please let me know your thoughts in the comment. I will read them, and I will take some of them, and then we'll do a follow-up video at a later date, hopefully when Nigel's gone full far right. Because apparently anybody that doesn't have a sign saying Nazis come off our streets is far right by definition. So I am far right, which is weird, because my last video that I recorded, which was, it'll be a few days ago now, the one about my father, where he went in World War II and fought the far right, you'd think I wouldn't have ended up far right, because he fought the far right and my uncle died fighting the far right so that we didn't have to be far right. So I don't know how we can be far right, because we're not far right just for having an opinion. So anybody that calls you far right, there is a very simple way of dealing with it, and there's a very simple argument you can use when people say, oh, you're far right. And the argument is a very simple one, and it works like this. You simply say to them, dear sir, thank you for your opinion on my political views. I really do appreciate it, but I think you'll find on this occasion you are wrong. And therefore, could you please fuck off? That works every time. You're welcome. Here endeth the sermon. Good luck, everybody. See you next week.